As the UK property crash or decline or correction, we won't know the correct term for another year or so, as that continues for the fourth month on the trot, according to Halifax, I've been thinking about who is going to be hardest hit by this decline. And I think I've come to a conclusion. There's one particular type of seller who I think is going to be really badly hit by this crash or decline or correction if they don't adjust their mindset and adjust it quickly. So if you've been involved in trying to buy a house recently, or even in probably the past maybe 5 to 10 years, and personally, I've been trying to buy a house for the past year or two, but I'll come back to that later in the video. You may have come across this phenomenon, which I'm trying to find the best term to describe this type of seller without being rude. So there are many sellers that are maybe overconfident, shall we say, in their prices. Now, some people might describe them as stubborn or arrogant or entitled sellers, but I think often it's the case that they have this confidence in their price because the estate agents have potentially misled them, over-enthusiastic estate agents that are overestimating the value of their property pretty much deliberately to get them to sign up with them and list their property through them. Now, over the past 10 years, that approach hasn't been necessarily a major problem because we have been in a market where house prices have generally been increasing year on year. So if someone came to market and they were above really where their price should have been, often the market would have come to them. Now, whether that would have taken a month or 6 months, the market would have generally caught them up. And what I would often see is that the people trying to sell these houses, instead of reducing their price to achieve the sale, after 3 or 4 months, they'd probably just change to another estate agent. And often they would then make the sale because, like I say, the housing market had caught up, the market had come to them. But things have changed massively. The market has changed massively. We're seeing these month-on-month reports showing declines in house prices. We all know what's happened with mortgages, with interest rates jumping pretty much from around about 2% to 5 to 6% for most mortgages that are being offered at the moment. So the cost of housing debt is much more expensive. Inflation out of control, the energy crisis, the economic situation has changed massively. So in this new market that we find ourselves, that has only just begun. We're only 4 months into this. This is just a tip of the iceberg. And even the ONS, they aren't even really reporting falls yet. They are still lagging by that 4 or 5 months. I think from now on, from January, February onwards, we will see the official figures from the land registry showing the first signs of this fall. But certainly the market has changed, and more importantly, the market sentiment has changed massively. If you talk to pretty much anyone now, most people are expecting a house price crash or correction over the coming year or two. So these sellers that I described as overconfident, if they do not adjust their strategy now, I think those are the ones that are going to lose the most. So this arrogance now will cost them more in the long run. And I've got a couple of examples to show you in this video and a few other bits to run through. But this is what I wanted to look at in this video, is that type of seller and why I believe they're going to be the hardest hit. So as I mentioned, Halifax are reporting a month-on-month decline for the 4th month on the trot. So overall, they are reporting that house prices are down 1.5% in December. That was following 2.4% in November. So it's over £10,000 off the average asking price of a property in the UK. Now, depending on where you live, seeing an average price of a property at 280,000 may seem laughable to some people, either laughably high or laughably low, but that is the average house price for the UK. But you can't argue with the direction that these lines are going, and I don't see them changing direction anytime soon. So I tweeted about this 2 or 3 days ago when it first came out. So if you want to see my latest thoughts on the housing market, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Darren the Degen. So the first thing I want to show you guys, and this is an article from Rightmove. It's from a few months ago, and obviously it was in a climbing market, but I still think a lot of this is relevant now, and actually more relevant for sellers that are potentially overpriced or refusing to budge on price at the moment. So let's read the headline, the obvious headline. Sellers twice as likely to sell if priced right the first time. So let's break this down a bit. Sellers are twice as likely to find a buyer for their home if they have an offer accepted on the first listed asking price. A study of 300,000 newly listed homes across 4 months shows that those that needed to be reduced had 1 in 3 chance of finding a buyer, only 32% within the time frame, compared to 63% chance if priced right from the start. So what Rightmove are showing, this is a study I think it was from 2022. Yeah, here we go. It says here from May to July 2022, this study is from. So what they are stating is if your price is incorrect from the off, you reduce the chance of finding a buyer by half. So 63% sell if the price is right, and only 32% do if they have to reduce the price. So here we go. Overpriced homes could also cost sellers an extra 26 days on average to find a buyer. The average time to find a buyer if a property is priced right is currently 21 days, rising to 47 days if needed to be reduced. Remember, that was in the bull market. We are now in the bear market. The market is fallen, so these figures are going to be extended. So the worst thing you want to do at the moment is be trying to sell a house and then extending that time for no reason, just because you're holding the price too high. Now, if we take this information and try and put it into what potentially may be happening to new listings at the moment, we can get an idea of how incorrectly priced some properties could be. So what is likely happening at the moment is many estate agents won't be being completely honest with potential new listings. They probably won't be telling them that Nationwide and Rightmove and Halifax are showing drops over the past few months. Instead, they're probably going to show them the land registry figures, the most official figures, which are still showing as of October, because that's the latest figures they have, despite the fact it's January now. I think the November figures are due out on the 18th of January, I believe. As of October, the average house price in the UK is 296,000. That is up 12.6% year on year. So if someone hasn't been following the housing market closely, and they have an estate agent, a so-called professional, comes through the door and tell them house prices are up 12% year on year, and that you should be listing at this price based on these properties, then they're already going to going on well above really where they should be. And I released a video last week showing information from Property Lion, who tracks the Rightmove asking prices, and they are already showing prices down 10% from the summer peak. So if you've got people listing based on estate agents telling them prices are still going up, when in reality asking prices are already down 10%, you've already got a big discrepancy between what a person probably thinks their property is worth based on what the estate agent is saying, and realistically what it has a chance of selling for. And on top of this, of course, you have the predicted falls as well. So Halifax, I think, are predicting 8% drop in 2023. And you've got Nationwide expecting a 5% drop. And honestly, I think both of these are undershooting that massively. You know, the fact that they're already reporting drops of around 4 to 5% before the year's even started, and before a lot of people are really feeling the pain from the mortgage increases, I think, 8% is really on the conservative side. But already, if you are looking to sell your property and you're 10% overpriced already, and you're not being realistic about the slump that is coming or the correction that is coming, there's a big, big gap between where you are and where expectant buyers are going to be. So it's so important you are quick to react. If you put your property on the market and you're not getting interest within 3 to 4 weeks and you haven't sold, then there's a good chance your price is well off. Now, obviously, timescales are going to be extended a bit from what Rightmove was saying here. 21 days was the average selling period. And I completely agree with that. When I was in the market last year or two, properties were going quick. And if they weren't selling within a few weeks, there was either something wrong, mainly the price was wrong, really. And then rising to 47 days if it needs to be reduced. So if you're in a falling market, you want to try and avoid this scenario. Now, I'm just going to take you over to Rightmove now. And I'm going to show you an area that I track, the reason I track it is because I used to live in that area before I moved and relocated earlier this year. But I know this part of the country inside out, so it gives me the best feel for what is happening in the markets. That's where I have the most experience from watching. And I've just sorted these by oldest first, and I'm just looking at detached properties and bungalows, as generally they are the most expensive in that particular area. And here we go. The first property here, this was listed in April 2022, 925,000. not a single price reduction. Now, either these people aren't fussed about selling, or maybe they've even forgot they're selling and the estate agent hasn't been chasing them. But if they want to sell, if they've been on the market, well, they'll be coming up about 9 months, I think, at the moment. If they've been on the market 9 months and they have not sold, the price is wrong. It's as simple as that. We come down here, some new homes that are being built. Again, this was listed in April last year. They're at 525 and haven't sold. And it looks like they've now got another listing with a slightly different photo. 525 still hasn't sold. These guys here at 720 look like they are what is called trying to juggle, or portal juggling as they call it. So they are basically manipulating the prices. And this is why it's important to have something like this extension installed. So I'm using Property Log. I think it's a completely free extension you can download for Chrome. I've been using it. It's quite useful to see this information. So they initially listed last March at £750,000. Then in May, dropped from 750 to 700. Then on the same day, put it back up. And then they tried to do it again the same day. So they're trying to get Rightmove to trigger a alert that it's a new listing or a price reduction listing, because then everyone gets the email alerts that come out. So they obviously tried that unsuccessfully. So they put the price back up to 750 and then did another price reduction. And then since then, so basically from May in 2022, the next price reduction, or say price increase. So these guys have just increased their price from 700 to 720,000. With no doubt, I guess in the next week or two, they're going to reduce this price from 720 to 700 to trigger the Rightmove algorithm. And if we actually go to the Rightmove portal and come down here, Rightmove have confirmed, so this is from someone who works at Rightmove, despite your best efforts to find a buyer or tenant, the reality is that sometimes you'll need to drop the price to make it happen. If you reduce the price by 2% or more, the property gets sent out again in Rightmove's instant alert emails. So that is why people are messing about doing this. They're trying to trigger the Rightmove email alert. So there's something to be aware of, and it's the reason why you need to make sure you're tracking these price drops to see if you're seeing genuine price drops or whether it's just the estate agents manipulating the listings. But this gives you an idea of the people that are being super stubborn about their prices. Now, if we know prices kind of semi-officially are already down 4% according to Halifax and Nationwide, people like Property Line are showing 10% down on asking prices. If people have been on the market for 9 months and they haven't made a sale and they're not reducing the prices, these are the type of overconfident, I guess, arrogant sellers I was talking about at the start that will be the hardest hit, because if the market is falling away from them already, if they do get to the point where they have to sell, because these guys maybe don't have to sell and they're just happy to sit there. But if they do get to the point where they have to sell, the market will have gone away from them. It is the opposite to what we have been seeing for the past 10 years. The market is not coming to them. The market is going away from them. So when they do eventually make the price cut required to achieve a sale, it will be bigger than what it needs to be if they did it now. So if these guys want to sell, their best bet is to be realistic about prices now, because if they do it in 6 months or 9 months or a year, the final price is going to be even lower. So it's all well and good these sellers thinking, well, if I don't reduce my price, then the house prices won't come down. It's the wrong way to think about it, because it isn't your transaction or your lack of transaction that dictates house prices. It is the transactions that take place, and other people will be reducing their prices. And if they reduce their prices and those transactions go through, then house prices come down. And of course, market sentiment is completely blown out of the water as well. So those two things combined, if you're overpriced, you're not going to make a sale at the moment. Now, before I wrap this video up, I'm just going to see if I can find an example or two of what people should be doing. So I've sorted this by oldest listed. Let's sort it by newest listed and see if we can find someone who's actually managed to sell their house in the past couple of months, maybe using price reduction. So let's scroll down until we see a sold subject to contract somewhere, an STC somewhere. Hopefully I haven't missed any already. There we go. Here's one here. So they listed in August. They stayed on the market for just over 3 or 4 months at their price. Then they dropped it by 50,000 and they got sold. Now, it's hard to know exactly how much to drop the price of a property. You're going to have to do your own research on that based on where you live and based on what other properties are currently selling for in that particular area. But these guys, if they hadn't sold in December, they probably would have been down another £50,000 by now with the speed that things are going. So it's very important when you make that reduction to make it substantial enough that you undercut most of the other people so you stand out again in the market. Don't just go on there looking like every other listing. These guys here lifted in October at 600,000, reduced it to 575. Still haven't sold. I would certainly be considering whether they need another reduction. Now it's a couple of months later on that. But this is the way to do things. If you're not getting that buyer, so June 475, August 475 to 450, November 450 to 440, doesn't look they're going to find a buyer at that price point. Maybe they need to go a bit further, but at least they are showing that they are willing to kind of react to what's happening in the market. So I'd imagine eventually these guys will find a buyer, but sometimes you can chase the market down too slowly. So maybe it's better to lose an extra 5 or 10 now than it will be to keep chasing it down in 5 or 10K increments and never really catch up the market. So that's what I wanted to talk about in this video, the potential sellers that are going to lose the most by digging in the most at the moment. The sooner people are realistic and reduce their prices a little bit more than the market is actually moving at the rate at which the market prices are going down, then they'll be the people that lose the least in this, what I think is going to be a crash, but may turn out to be less than that. We shall see. Now, going back to my own experience of stubborn sellers, next week I'm going to release a video talking about how I actually ended up in the rental property that I'm currently in, because I actually tried to buy last year. It didn't go through, but I decided to sell my property as I felt they were at the top of the market. So if you want to hear more about my own experience with stubborn sellers, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because I'm going to release that next week. If you found this video helpful, make sure you hit the like button. And if you want to know how big I think this crash is going to be in its entirety, I'm going to pop up a video in front of me now, and I'll see you guys over there.